Russia marked the 80th anniversary of its defeat of Nazi Germany with an enormous military parade in Moscow. The event is seen as a show of force of Russia on the international stage. Foreign leaders, including China's Xi Jinping and Brazil's Lula da Silva, joined President Vladimir Putin in the Russian capital, as well as Slovakia's Prime Minister Robert Fico. Speaking at the parade, Putin hailed Russian troops fighting in Ukraine.
Россия была и будет несокрушимой преградой для нацизма, русофобии, антисемитизма. Будет бороться с бесчинствами, что творят поборники этих агрессивных, разрушительных идей. Правда и справедливость на нашей стороне. Вся страна, общество, народ поддерживают участников специальной военной операции. Мы гордимся их смелостью и решительностью, той силой духа, которая всегда приносила нам только победу.
Serbia's President Alexander Vučić made his first trip to Russia since the invasion on Wednesday, despite the EU's message that visiting Moscow could derail Serbia's ambitions to join the bloc.
Denmark has summoned the acting U.S. ambassador in the country for explanations, following a report saying the U.S. is stepping up intelligence gathering efforts regarding Greenland. The report, published by the Wall Street Journal, said several high-ranking intelligence officials had directed intelligence agency heads to learn more about Greenland's independence movement and sentiment about U.S. resource extraction there.
Jeg har godt læst en artikel i Wall Street Journal, og den bekymrer mig meget, fordi vi spionerer ikke mellem venner. Og jeg kan jo ikke vide, om det sker, fordi det står i en avis. Men det virker jo ikke særlig stærkt gendrevet af dem, der udtaler sig. Og det bekymrer mig.
Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen echoed the foreign minister's concerns on Friday, saying you cannot spy against an ally. Last month, she said U.S. statements about annexing the island were disrespectful and insisted the territory was not up for sale. The Security Service of Ukraine announced on Friday that it exposed a suspected Hungarian military intelligence network. It said in a statement that it was the first time in Ukraine's modern history that foreign espionage activities from an EU country were discovered. Hungary's foreign minister responded to the allegations, calling the claims Ukrainian propaganda.
Ukrajnában gyakran alkalmaznak magyar ellenes propagandát. Olyan magyar ellenes propagandát, amelyről sok esetben kiderült, hogy semmifajta alapja nincsen. Úgyhogy ezért én arra kérek mindenkit, hogy minden ilyen ukrán propagandában megjelenő hírrel szemben tanúsítson óvatosságot. És majd, hogyha kapunk bármilyen részletet vagy hivatalos információt, majd akkor tudunk ezzel foglalkozni, mindaddig ezt egy óvatossággal kezelendő propagandának kell minősítenem.
Two suspects, both former members of the Ukrainian military, have been detained and face charges of treason. They're accused of collecting information on Ukrainian forces in the Zakarpattia region, searching for vulnerabilities in defense systems and studying the socio-political views of local residents.
China's April trade data shows exports to the US fell sharply, though overall exports rose over 8%, driven by export to other nations. The figures suggest President Donald Trump's tariffs are accelerating a global supply chain shift away from China. Shipments to the US plunged 21% in April due to American tariffs, and China's imports from the US also dropped. US and Chinese officials meet in Geneva on Saturday, but analysts doubt a full tariff rollback and predict a further drop in China's US-bound exports. The supply chain restructuring sped up by the pandemic and trade barriers has seen manufacturers diversify away from China. While the US remains a key market, the EU and Southeast Asia are China's larger regional export destinations. In the first 4 months of this year, exports to ASEAN, Latin America, India and Africa also strong double-digit growth. The data comes as Beijing announced measures earlier this week to support its own economy, which faces challenges in the housing and banking sectors.
Ukrainians laid flowers to pay their respects to World War II veterans on Europe Day, commemorating the signing of the Schuman Declaration on the 9th of May 1950. The declaration was an ambitious plan to secure long-term peace in post-war Europe, and is considered the beginning of what now is the EU. Some hold up pictures of relatives who fought in the conflict, but also remember those who are now fighting.
У мене зараз син на фронті з першого дня. І він до цього свята теж вшановує його і каже, да, ми тоді наші батьки захистили державу, тепер ми захищаємо.
Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine is the deadliest conflict Europe has seen since the end of World War II in 1945.
At least 5 civilians were killed following an intense exchange of fire between Indian and Pakistani soldiers along the line of control that divides Kashmir. Indian military officials said they responded after Pakistani troops barraged their posts overnight. People in border towns said the firing continued well into Friday morning. 4 civilians were killed in Pakistan-controlled Kashmir. On the Indian side of the border, a woman was killed and 2 other civilians were injured, according to police. Tensions have soared since a tourist site in India-controlled Kashmir was attacked by militants, killing 26 people. On Wednesday, India conducted airstrikes on several sites in Pakistani territory, which Pakistan vowed to respond to. The crisis has disrupted daily life for people in both India and Pakistan, with schools being shut and flight operations suspended in border regions.
The Irish Prime Minister Micheál Martin has described Gaza as hell on earth and criticized the EU's lack of response to the humanitarian situation in Gaza, and reiterated calls to reopen the EU-Israel Association Agreement. The Prime Minister met with Commission President Ursula von der Leyen to discuss this as well as the ongoing trade war with the US. Speaking with Euronews, he said Ireland condemns Hamas terrorism and wants all the hostages kidnapped by Hamas released, but says Israel's war has lost its moral compass.
It's quite shocking what is now happening within Gaza. To have an effective blockade for 50 days and more, 60 days maybe now, in terms of food, in terms of the essentials of life, the bare necessities of life, in my view, must be considered a war crime. And I don't say that easily. I want a resolution. We want the restoration of the ceasefire. We want the release of all hostages.
Israel launched its war in Gaza in response to the Hamas attack on October 7th of 2023.
In my view, it was shocking to take people as hostages. These were innocent people at a concert in their kibbutz. I went to kibbutz Be'eri myself to see it firsthand, the impact of the horrific Hamas attack on Israel. And that was shocking and horrible. And I've condemned it from the outset, and I went there to show empathy with the people who had been attacked. So all those, the hostages should have been released a long time ago. But the war that has been waged in response, in my view, has lost any moral compass at this stage in terms of its unacceptable impact on the civilian population and on children.
Israel described in the past the Irish policy as extreme anti-Israeli. You can watch the whole interview next Tuesday on the Europe Conversation.
The world waited in excitement to find out the identity of the new pope after white smoke billowed above the Sistine Chapel, indicating that the conclave had reached a successful ballot. In comes the American Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost. Born in September 1955 in Chicago, Prevost, who's taken the name Leo XIV, became the first U.S.-born to become head of the Catholic Church. Prevost has extensive experience, having lived in Peru for many years, serving first as a missionary and then archbishop. In 2014, the late Pope Francis appointed him to run the Diocese of Chiclayo, where he remained in that position until 2023. Pope Leo XIV also acquired Peruvian citizenship during his residence in the Latin American country. In 2023, Francis brought Prevost to the Vatican to serve as the powerful head of the office that vets bishop nominations from around the world. He also simultaneously served as president of the Pontifical Commission for Latin America, overseeing the Catholic hierarchy in the part of the world with the most Catholics. Prevost was also twice elected general, or top leader of the Augustinian religious order, founded by St. Augustine in the 13th century.